Evan Lawson. Mark Feuerstein as Henry Winkler as Eddie R. Lawson. And Mark Feuerstein as Dave Lawson.
Hi guys.
So first off, I gotta say, a little disappointed there was no rapping in the musical episode.
Yes. Well, that was an artistic choice made by our executive producer, Michael Rausch. It just wouldn't have fit in this homage to the classical musical movie.
But I feel like, many of the fans, I'm sure, have seen Mark's very wonderful MC skills. Is there a little taste you can give us today?
I've put together a little medley for all of you people of a couple of raps, the season 1 and then another one, and it goes something like, what happened was, short little story about my rapping career on Royal Pains. There were so many medical terms, season 1, strung together that I felt it imperative that I just rap them. So here's a little ditty. Glossopharyngeal nerve is intact, no masses in the neck or thyroid. Lungs, heart, abdomen are normal. Repeat the words, ball flag tree.
Ball flag tree.
We're going back to the beach, y'all. In the Hamptons where life is so sweet, y'all. So crawl out your beehive, the moment's arriving. I'll hit my reverse dive into season 5.
Woo! I had to ask it out before the end.
I'm so glad you did.
Michael and Andrew, I know that this musical episode is something that you've been talking about for a long time. I'm wondering what it was like to kind of finally put it together, put it to a script, and figure this all out, especially the original music. That was really great.
I'll reiterate what was said at the beginning by Mark. This was fully Michael's brainchild. He's been talking about it since, I think, the show, before the show even existed. He was imagining this episode and did an amazing job writing it.
It was by far for me at least, the hardest episode we've ever done, and at the same time the most enjoyable and most satisfying. And we begged from season 1, and the network said no. And then we asked again in season 2, and they said no. And then by the time we season 8, we realized we shouldn't ask, so we just did it. And we hired Tom Kitt, who had won the Pulitzer Prize, and Tony did Next to Normal, and he wrote this incredible music. And it was just one of those situations where we started looking at our cast and realizing, we always knew that because we shoot in New York, we have access to all these Broadway stars that, like Cheyenne Jackson, Laura Benanti, and Patty Muir, who did guest stars on it. And it was always increasing. Never saw in the back of our minds that we could bring these people in to do a musical. And then we kind of overlooked the obvious, which is that our core ensemble, these people up here, are all incredible singers and dancers and performers. And we asked each of them a little bit shyly, we're going to do a musical, are you okay doing it? And every one of them was like, I'm in. And they were so incredible every day and every song, and it really just, and our department heads also, it just raised everyone's game, and it just was unending fun.
And this one's for the cast. I'm wondering, now's the time to spill about who had the most trouble maybe with the choreography, who was the most skilled on the dance floor. Was there any skills that surprised you guys when you were filming this?
So that's the big dance number. At the end, before they put all the tables to make his face, I'm in the front. The choreographer, who is like a famous choreographer, was like, "All right, Paul, you're gonna be in the front." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, this quick little shuffle step. I practiced for like 3 days to do the shuffle step, and when we got to that whole scene was like shot in like 4 hours or something. At the end of the day, the sun was going down. It was crazy that we even got that whole scene. But the second the camera started rolling, I completely threw all the choreography out. I just started kicking like a madman. And luckily they cut around enough to not show it. But yeah, that's my story. Thanks a lot.
And Paulo and I would rehearse our number, I'm Done, every free moment we had from set. We would just run to the guest house and go through our choreography, and we had to learn the song, and it took a lot of time, and we were terrified about it.
We still do it even though the show's done.
We're done, and done. Yet we're still talking about the show.
And knowing that this was the final season of the show, Andrew, I'm wondering, what was on your bucket list for the final season? What were some things that you put in that you really wanted to see before the end?
Well, first, we should acknowledge the incredibly rare opportunity that the network and studio gave us by giving us advance notice that we were going to get not one but two final seasons to wrap up our storytelling. And the show for us has always been about two things, fundamentally, family and second chances. And it really felt like by the end of season 6, this unlikely family had formed beautifully, but each character still had room to grow in terms of fulfilling their respective second chances in life. So the last 2 seasons were really for us about mapping out how are we going to get each character to where we think the audience wants them to be, to where we think they deserve to be. We weren't looking for closure. We were really just looking for a sense of completeness. And we're so happy that we were given the chance to do it. We're satisfied by it. We think the cast is, and hopefully the audience is too.
And you also just had your 100th episode on Wednesday, so congrats on that. Obviously, and we saw the return of Jill Casey. I'm wondering what it was like for you all to kind of see her again, and I loved the dynamic between your character and her. You've seen this just kind of step into it so easily once again.
I love Jill Flint as a human being and as an actress, and it was sad that she went off on her own. We're so thrilled for her to be on Night Shift. It's a big hit for NBC, and yet we were so happy to have her back. And she was in the last episode that was on the air, and it was just so great to have her. But you also mentioned that we hit 100, and I don't want to let that pass without just acknowledging how grateful we all were to go that far. Several of us on the show, both executive producers and actors, have been on other shows, and there's no better place to talk about that than at the ATX Festival, where you chart all of the failures and successes. But we've had the experience of being on the show for a season and a half, half a season, 3 episodes on and out. And so to hit 100 episodes was such a milestone, and we had been appreciative every day to go to this set of good people who are good at what they do and love doing it, and it really was like a family. And so we don't take that milestone lightly. It was a great achievement, and we're very grateful that we hit it.
I did the math. We shot 104 in total, which is 74.5 hours. I had some time to really think about it, which boils down to if you watch Royal Pains for 12 hours a day, you'd have to watch it for 4 full days, and then an extra 2.5 hours. And we
Start your binges now.
Which is what we're about to do right now.
That's right. Make sure we'll be watching you watch it.
It seemed to hit at the end that Jill might be back. You were looking at that car kind of longingly.
Kate, I can't tell you things.
This is my
This
job.
is spoiler alert. She was back for episode 4, and we said goodbye. So I don't know if who knows?
She's on the night shift now. Let's just get over it.
Night shift.
Now, Henry, this was such a great episode. I love that scene between your 2 characters. That was really wonderful. I'm wondering if you can kind of go back to the beginning of when you were first approached about this role for season 2. Obviously, in season 1, we knew of the loss in father and how he had kind of, skipped town when their mom was sick and things like that. I mean, that's not the easiest role to step into, so.
It was amazing. Stacy, my wife, who was in the back, we were fans of the show. We watched the show. And we love television. And then I got a call to meet with Michael and Mr. Wachowski and Andrew, and we went to a restaurant in my neighborhood, and we had breakfast. And I had pancakes. And we were talking about it, and I was telling them all about the details of the show and how much I love the show. And while I was doing that, I poured the syrup on my pancakes. Except when I looked down, it was the cream for my coffee. And I said, no, they're buttermilk pancakes. This enhances the taste. So that was my start. And then I started...
Did you eat them? Did you actually eat some of them?
Oh, I ate them with gusto. I wasn't going to let them know that I had just peed my pants. And then I got to be on the set, and I didn't get to be there just for an episode. I got to be there for a season, and then I got to be there for 7, because I didn't miss the first one. And I have to say that some of my favorite scenes that I've ever done, I've done with this cast. I have done with these two men, my sons. I went from not being a dad, being guilty, wanting to sell them down the river for my own good, to the last thing I say, which is I will never take them for granted, and I will never take their wonderful friendship on that set for granted.
Just a word about Henry Winkler and the kind of actor he is to work with.
Wait a minute, let me get this in stereo.
Yeah, please. I remember maybe season 2 or season 3, we had a scene together where I had a line, he said, "Can you ever trust me again?" His line was, "Can you trust me again?" And I was very upset with him. This was in the wake of his abandoning us as children. We hadn't seen him in a long time. And I had this reaction to, "Can you trust me again?" I said no. And we did it a few times, and we had perfectly usable takes. But on the last take, Henry just decided to go completely off script. It was on my coverage, meaning the camera was on me over his shoulder. He got nothing out of, giving it that extra oomph. But when we came to that line, he just turned to me and he said, "I love you." And it just elicited this reaction that I couldn't have predicted, planned, against all my intentions to plan everything I do. And it was just a great moment, and it was all because of a generous actor who's willing to do what it takes to get whatever he can out of his scene partner.
I have one more. When we first met, we were shooting a scene outside. We were on a picnic table. Many different extras. There were so many extras in it. And there was this little girl. So Henry, you were sitting here, I was sitting here, and we were about to shoot, and I didn't know you very well, and you were like, "Stop! Everyone stop!" And everyone stopped, and you said, this little girl, you said, "Move to your right, please." And I was like, what the fuck is happening? I thought it was like an eyeline thing. I was like, holy shit. And we stopped, and I'm like, "So was that like, why did you think?" And you just very plainly said, "Well, she wouldn't be on camera if she was over to the right. She was excited to be here." And I was like, that's pretty fucking cool.
Very moving scene was obviously the end of the episode of The Lawson Family is about to expand. I'm wondering what Brooke and Paula, what kind of parents you imagine your characters to be. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that necessarily, or we might. We don't know about the final episode, flash forward, who knows? But I mean, what do you kind of see for your characters coming up now that they're going to be parents?
Oh, good question. I would imagine, Paige just continued to evolve into a lovelier and lovelier person as the series went on. So I would imagine motherhood would challenge her in many ways, and she would continue to rise to the occasion and just be kinder and more loving as time goes on. And this guy, I think, would probably take a few dips and redeem himself over and over again.
Few babies wouldn't make it.
Yeah. And draw them closer as they always had been throughout the series.
It's hard to think of Evan kind of being a disciplinary kind of figure. That's the one thing I'll say.
No comment.
I've loved seeing this relationship, evolve over the show. It's been such an interesting kind of dynamic to watch grow. Paolo, how do you think kind of this relationship with Paige changed Evan as a character from where we met him at the beginning?
Well, for those of you who don't know, Paige was introduced as for like a couple episode arc. And on television shows, that's what happens. There's arc characters. There's people who are going to be there for the whole season. There's people who are going to be there for one episode. And with her, it was supposed to be like 3 episodes, maybe 2 or 3. And then she showed up. And because she was overqualified for that size role, and because her and I, just as actors, like the chemistry was it was perfect. We just instantly hit it off as people too.
And because I refused to leave the show.
I'm
saying.
Brooke was so nice that all of us were like, we can't kick her off. She's gonna be so sad. We just care took her emotions, and that's why she's here now. But my character was very kind of immature, like a wannabe womanizer up until that point. And an episode in season 2, yeah, there was like a whole arc between us. And by the end of season 2, he went from a guy who had never been in love and like I don't even know if he'd ever had sex. He sure seemed like he wanted to have sex a lot. He had never actually hooked up with anybody ever. To being like this kind of like boy man, kind of began the journey. And then, it's so weird to be on a show for this long because literally you get to play a boy who turns into a boy in love, turns into a kind of a man, and then turns into people who possibly have kids. And I had a kid during the course of the show, so it was very parallel to my own life. Thank you very much. I'm Paula Costanza.
Well, Brooke, what was it like? I mean, did you get any hits from the producers when you were filming those first couple episodes of like, okay, she might be back, or what was that process like?
I felt like it was going well, and it looked like they were leaving the story open-ended. So there was always that hope on my end that I was coming back, and I would go home and talk to my boyfriend at that time. He's like, well, don't worry, babe, don't worry. Like, this is what they can do as writers. There's a million things that could go down. So he was always reassuring me anytime it looked like perhaps it was coming to a close. He always had many ideas of what they could possibly do. Not that I ever told them, but in the back of my mind, I was like holding a space to come back.
I would walk in on her praying.
Yeah.
Just in the corner of the set, oh Jesus, please God.
But it's such an amazing group of people. When you walk in from the outside, you just feel there's so much love in this group that none of the guest stars wanted to leave. I mean, it was like heaven in terms of TV shows. It's the one you want.
And Michael and Andrew, did you guys have any other plans for Evan's love life before Brooke came into the picture? I think I remember at the beginning there were some fans that were maybe thinking about Evan and Divya, maybe, possibly? No way.
It was.
Denied. So clear.
That was brought up in the room a few times, and definitely were fans who wanted it. I think one of the surprises for us as writers is you always try to lay out a roadmap for what's going to happen in the show. And the way season 1 began, Hank was going to be the man who got married, who became a father, who had a family, and Evan was going to be the single ne'er-do-well who was looking for love, and ultimately would grow up probably by the end of the series. And what we found after season 1 was that we really wanted to dimensionalize Evan, and we wanted to figure out a way to make him more of a empathetic character, and we decided to have him meet a woman. And then Brooke came along, and the chemistry was so instant that we kind of changed course and realized that we had a lot of road to tell a love story with Evan and Paige. It really became the great love story of the series, and it became the family of this. They're the ones who get married and have a child and go on. So it's really, it was a surprise, but it was a great surprise for us.
And on the flip side, I've had 300 girlfriends. I can't find one. Just settle down.
What's up with that, by the way? That was one of my questions. I mean, everything that Cloris Leachman said in that episode. I mean, charismatic, he's a doctor, you live in the Hamptons. I mean, it doesn't seem like that hard of a sell any raps.
Look, I wasn't as lucky as Evan, and I mean, I don't know. I guess they reversed the roles that they had intended to write for Hank and Evan, and maybe it's about not having the perfect fit in the writers. I really can't speak to that. How it happened that I became a male whore and never found the love of my life.
Just to be clear, that's never the term that we use.
It's what my friends use.
Doctor in search of is the way we talked about you. I think that was part of Hank's journey. Again, it was a journey of reinvention. The pilot begins with him losing his job, losing his fiancée. When we first meet Hank and Evan, they're clearly, if not estranged, then they have a strained relationship. And so the series was really about seeing him solve all of those problems and fill all of those voids in his life. And so to give him a girlfriend and marry him off in season 4 would really plug one of those holes, I think in our view, prematurely. The other problem, quite frankly, that we had is, when we tried pairing both Mark and Hank with different actresses and characters, we honestly found it's very hard to find actresses and characters worthy of Mark and Hank. The audience seemed to kind of reject one relationship after another. We had amazing actresses one after another who came in and took the swing, but the audience was just convinced that no one was good enough for their Hank, maybe because every woman in our audience wanted Mark for themselves. But it was a tough puzzle to solve, and you guys will see whether or not we solved it by the end of season 8.
And Reshma, I have to say that Divya's journey has been so interesting, especially because looking at her and Raj in season 1, and now, you know, a couple kids, they're married. I mean, what was your reaction when you found out that that character was going to come back into her life and the trajectory of that?
My reaction. I think that the reaction to the pregnancy was obviously, the second pregnancy was because I was pregnant. And bringing Raj back in, I think was a really nice a ribbon on top of how much she realized how her culture and how this guy, who she hadn't really got to know before, really mattered, and to get there on her terms. You know, and as a character, obviously, I mean, I just want to say, I watched that musical episode and I was so proud of everybody on the stage. It's the first time I've seen it. And I was so proud of every one of us. Some of us are singers, some of us don't have as much experience, and we're tremendous. And I just was so proud. Anyway, blah, blah, back to the question. No, absolutely, her character has, I mean, art from the beginning. I watched the pilot episode, I think, a few weeks ago, and it's so interesting to see like who as people we were in that episode and how much we've changed. Like myself and Paolo had our first kid during this episode. We got married as people, personally.
Not to each other.
Not to each other. Not to each other. But I thought it was beautiful that he came back, and I think they had to bring him back because I was pregnant again, so I could have played the whore. I could have been the whore of the show. But, yeah.
And one of the things
No one should say the word whore in a Royal Pains.
We're spicing it up, it's the last day.
It's really the wrong venue for the word whore.
And I have one last question, but we're going to start taking audience questions in a minute, so if you guys want to start lining up. The one question I have to ask Ben is, I really love the journey of Jeremiah on the show, and especially kind of discovering a little bit more about him and finding out, you know, he's on the spectrum. I'm wondering how that kind of changed the character for you, what research you did for that, you know, what can you say about that?
I think although we didn't say the character was on the spectrum, it was part of the design of the character from the beginning. But what wasn't, I think, was that he would be a permanent part of the show. That just kind of evolved in the wonderful kind of organic way that can sometimes happen on television, where once he was thrown in with the other character because of where they were in the story, it was just clear that there would be room for there to be more of him. And because of the way the character was written, too, and I think by the accident of how I was playing him and the way the writers were thinking of him, the audience was able to get more interested maybe than people expected in what might be going on with him emotionally. And then the whole thing with Divya, which I felt was a beautiful storyline, the way his attraction to her then grows into the friendship and all the twists and turns that took. So as far as research went, I didn't have time to do very much because often when you're cast as a guest actor in television, it's kind of expediently. It's as they need to get ready to shoot the scenes with that character. So it's not as if you have months of lead time or anything like that. I took a little bit of, initially I did a little bit of looking at people with Asperger's syndrome, which most people know is on the higher functioning end of the autism spectrum. And I was immediately moved in the little research that I did by examples I saw of people who were very intelligently and acutely aware of what they were unable to perceive that other people were able to perceive. And so they were in a way that was very touching, able to describe themselves as being unable to perceive and function in certain ways, but they were thinking about how to compensate for it. And although I don't think that played out with Jeremiah in the show until much later, as soon as the show got within shooting range of us realizing, oh, Jeremiah understands what it is that he's missing and is constantly thinking about what that might cost him, possibly. And that I found very emotional as an actor, just to perceive about the character. And then it was just off the races, because once that was there, I felt like you could go anywhere with that character. And of course, it's funny and it's endearing, but that just lays the perfect groundwork for you to get in closer. And that, the writers played that out so, I mean, the writers played that out to a degree that's beyond any experience I've had playing any kind of character in any kind of show. To be in the sort of long game of television with a character like that has been like one of the happiest things for me ever. So thank you guys.
You're so smart.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Do we have some fan question?
Hi guys. That was a wonderful episode. Thank you, and thank you for being back. I wanted to know, and you've alluded to it in some cases, especially like Reshma's pregnancy, but are there ways, like in the writer's room throughout the course of the series, that your personalities as people, are there some fun ways that the writers started to pull in, like, oh, well, Henry does this, so let's make sure that we start to pull that in a little bit more, or some fun examples really where the writing came from you as humans and dictated the characters a little bit more, even in like small, just fun bits.
I'll speak for myself. But I feel, I mean, with a lot of shows, what's happening over there?
No, we're honored that you're speaking on behalf of the writers.
I'm going to speak on behalf of everyone here. I'm just going to quickly say that I mean, any good writer, or good, you know, the people producing and making the show are going to start writing to the strengths of the actors that they've employed. And I feel like so many of us, not only amazingly, not only like as people, did you kind of write. I don't even know. I wonder if you were guiding us in our real lives, or the other way around. But I found that Evan's voice became, you know, a total like mishmash, like what's that word when family members have sex with each other? Incestuous kind of wildebeest.
Don't worry about whore anymore.
So incestuous wildebeest, incestuous whore wildebeest. That's all I have to. Why did I even?
I'll aspire to improve upon that. I think there was both art imitating life and life imitating art. First of all, the uncanny parallels between some of these characters' arcs and the arcs of the actors who played them in their personal lives. You know, Paulo talked about, you know, starting a family. As Evan was starting a family, you know, Reshma, you know, connected with Divya in terms of a lot of the things that she had experienced in her personal life, in her background, in her family history. So I think that made it easy right away for a lot of them to connect to their characters. And I think because we became so close as a group, I'm sure a lot of the times it was subconscious that we'd pick up on isms, Ben-isms that would become part of Jeremiah, Mark-isms that would become part of Hank. But my favorite story is the life imitating art story. It's actually two stories. One, and it's been a while, so correct me if I'm misremembering, one is a Reshma story, one's a Paulo story. They both happened upon real-life medical emergencies going about their daily lives, and Reshma's, I think, was in a department store.
Saks Fifth
Avenue. I was trying to protect you. I was going to say Bloomingdale's.
I got a coat, it was on sale.
She's well paid, but she deserves it. So, a woman, I think, had some kind of asthma attack or choked on something, and Reshma literally ran to the rescue and went into Divya mode and comforted her until the paramedics arrived.
Let me say the story because I'm not the writer. Because I was there. She was unconscious on the floor. Nobody was doing anything. I was like, somebody call a doctor. Nobody was doing anything. My sister next to me is like, do something! And I was like, so then I didn't do that, by the by.
And he said duct tape, a battery, 3 cups.
Exactly. No, and actually I learned the stuff from the show. It was really interesting because I knew if she's unconscious, turn her to the side, so if she's going to throw up, that she, doesn't swallow and all that kind of stuff. Got her on her side, still asking for a doctor, no doctor's coming. So sitting there, and I asked her, then she came out, and I asked her about her medications, and if she'd taken any, and I got the list. The funny part of the story to me was after the paramedics came, 2 sets came, and 1 set took her away. And I'm going downstairs with the coat that I bought on sale from Saks, because I only buy on sale, because I'm thrifty. I'm going down in the elevator, and the elevator shut, and the other paramedics are there, and they're like, wait, are you Divya from work? And I was like, yes.
That was the first story I heard, soon to be followed by Paulo encountering a very similar situation, possibly also in the department store.
I played an accountant, though. Was someone had a tax problem?
Oh, it's coming. You don't remember your own story? Someone, I think, also collapsed, and Paulo immediately ran up and he said, I'm not a doctor, but I play one's brother on TV.
And I'll call 911.
That never happened. I have no recollection of that. It was Ben.
He's not the brother. It makes no sense if it's Ben. Let us handle the writing. You answer the acting.
It was great. It was really great.
All right, next question.
Hi, if you could play any character that's not your own, who would you play?
On the show.
On the show, yeah, sorry.
Paige. Divya.
Jeremiah.
Well, we gotta pick the ones to the left, right? Like, Ma, Kang.
Boris. Boris.
What about Miss Newberg? Oh, she's smart. You should be Miss Newberg.
Dieter.
We're getting real deep here now, you guys.
So I guess a couple parts for the writers. What was the most fun ailment to come up with to write into the show for a victim that Hank had to save, and for the actors, what was the most difficult, from a pronunciation standpoint, you had to practice, or that you maybe laughed about, or had fun, or couldn't quite get out?
I'll start with the most fun ailment, and I'm just going to do a little twist on it, which is because we had so many wonderfully horrible things that we did to people, but we had a character who was recurring named Killer Keller, who's someone that played by Michael Silver, who's terrific. He sang terribly off key in the musical, but we as writers took great pleasure in every episode he was in finding something incredibly humiliating to do to him. And that we always tried to up the game, and oftentimes it involved him having to have his full body shaved and waxed. So he was always so grateful when he was cast, but we'd show up wondering what we were going to do to him next. So I'd say for us, and it was probably the most fun we had.
And how about the pronunciation? What was something that's a hard time with?
I mean, the truth is, in the first couple of years, I would get crazy medical jargon to spew, and we always had medical experts to help us with the pronunciation. But in recent years, Jeremiah has taken on some speeches that were pretty insane.
This is from my 3rd episode. Legionella can give you an isovolemic hypoosmolar hyponatremia with the hyperkalemia and the hypokalemia, so that's why I want to get it worked up for Legionnaire's disease.
I thought glossopharyngeal was good. That's amazing.
And by the way, I could not get that out of my mouth when we shot it. It had to be written on a card, which was not my proudest moment. But of course, once it's been written on a card, it's stuck in my head until I die.
I'm Harold Ben, Austin author and songwriter. And I wanted to ask Michael, well, first of all, it's a great episode, beautifully written, but what I really thought was effective was the black and white number at the end. And I was wondering, did y'all originally write it that way, or did you just do it as a contrast because it was like a hallucination, or how did you decide to differentiate that black and white from all that color?
It's a great question, Harold, and really the idea for the musical, for me, came from, I was raised by a father who was a middle-class Jew in the Bronx, and he would play hooky and go into Manhattan to Radio City Music Hall to watch old musicals. So he was raised watching Fred Astaire movies. Fred Astaire was his idol. And then when I was born, and I was about 4 or 5, he wanted to go see all these movies again in second-run theaters, and my mom said no way, and my sister's old enough, she said no thanks. So he would drag me, and I was too young to say no. So we went and saw these movies as a kid, and it was always, there was a glamour to it, and a beauty to it, and a sense of fantasy, of elegance that I always loved, and part of why I wanted to do a musical for this show was to have a number that we could do on a set that looked like an RKO set, in black and white, with these incredible gowns and black tie, and have an orchestra where there's a conductor who's conducting and turns the camera and smiles, the way that happened in every one of those movies. And Ray Kluge, who designed the set, and Caroline Duncan, who designed the wardrobe, and Francesca and Anita, who did the hair and makeup. It just, we all came onto the set that day, and we were blown away by the beauty of the set, the beauty of the actors, the beauty of the wardrobe. You know, we had Joshua Bell, we had Tom Kitt. It was just this incredibly magical day. And that to me was the most important number to get in the musical.
And that conductor was Tom Kitt in real life. That was actually him.
Thank you.
I think this might have to be our last question, so.
Hey guys, love the show. Okay, so with the final season wrapping up, I was just wondering what one memory pops into your head from the first episode, from the pilot. From anyone, yeah.
I remember that party scene. I remember us being up very late. These were crazy long days, and the director had such a great idea for a shot that tracked, I think, from outside the front of Oheka Castle all the way up the stairs, all the way into this enormous high-ceilinged, I guess, event space room. What would you, I don't know how you call that room, but then we go outside into the backyard of Oheka.
It was a long shot.
It was an amazing shot to this great song, and he did it in a way where the motion sped up and then froze, and then sped up again and then froze on various dancers, models,
body parts.
And that was an amazing, amazing shot and amazing scene.
Me too, same memory. This is where God would party.
Yes.
I remember the first shot that I had. I was a musical theatre person, right? And I'd done a few like little small things, but this is like my big start. And I had to do a walk and talk with Mark Feuerstein and Christine Ebersol. And I'm walking and talking in heels, which I do not do well in, down the street, and I had to I was doing something, wearing glasses. I remember that I don't wear glasses, so everything was just odd to me and very scary, and I remember that distinctly.
You were great.
Thanks, Paul.
But sorry. No, I was going to say I wasn't there in the first year, but I wanted to say thank you for all of the memories that I have for being part of this incredible family of Royal Pains.
I want to just second that motion because I remember feeling when we were shooting the pilot, driving around in that beat-up green Saab by the beaches of Long Island, this is too good to be true. I really felt that way, and I just fantasized and dreamed that it would somehow magically continue, and under the guidance of Andrew Lencheski and Michael Rausch, this confederacy of Menches, these amazing two guys, we have had the time of our lives. They've led with love, and it has trickled down throughout our set, our cast, our writers, our crew, who we love like family. And this is a family you're staring at. We've been together for 8 years. It has been the ride of our lives. We are so grateful. We pinched ourselves every day coming to set, and this is just a victory lap to sit here in front of you and talk about the amazing experience we had.
Thank you to the cast and the executive producers for coming out. Thank you to everyone for coming out today. Royal Pains airs Wednesdays at 10.